Welcome back to the Reading Room Without Walls. After the community spirit of Ngugi wa Thiong'o's A Grain of Wheat, which was greeted with much enthusiasm and a revival of community bonds, we're changing gears to a more light-hearted book for romantics and for anyone trying to rebalance work and life. Many of you might see your own experiences reflected like a mirror. Today's pick is Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding, 1996. We'll also peek into the 2001 film adaptation, which keeps the same light, confessional tone.
Here's a quick refresher for listeners who might not be familiar with this little treasure. Bridget is in her early 30s in London, keeps a diary with daily stats, leans on her friends, and navigates two very different men. The book is really about self-talk, small progress, and how relationships reveal our values. We'll discuss the diary voice, the stressors that drive those stats, friendship as a safety net, red and green flags, and how faithful the film is.
Let's zoom in on the diary numbers because they do a lot of work. When you see a line like cigarettes 5, units 2, calories 1200, you're not just learning habits, you're seeing her mood in shorthand.
Right, and context helps. The numbers in Bridget's diary usually come right after a stressor. For instance, she goes to a family gathering and gets the classic question, "Still single?" plus a comment about her weight. I'm sure many of you have been in that situation once or twice. No wonder that in her diary entry right after, the units tick up and the tone turns sharp. Then she meets her friends. They debrief, and by the end of the entry, she sets a small resolution: sleep, water, reset. The numbers map the spike and the come down.
Then there's the work wobble. She gets mixed signals from a boss or a colleague in a meeting, friendly in private, dismissive in public. In her next diary entry, cigarettes rise. Calories go a bit chaotic. And you see a line like, must be more professional tomorrow. Later, she self-corrects the narrative. Maybe she misread the tone, maybe she didn't. That self-correction builds trust, even when her first read was off.
Let's not forget the hilarious romantic mixed signals. A charming late-night message, lots of sparkle, then silence the next day. The diary clearly shows the short-term coping. Extra coffees, checking the phone, a slightly brittle joke. However, a friend reframes it, advising her to watch patterns, not moments, leading to a units drop over the next few days. The voice softens. You can follow the emotional regulation in the numbers.
And then there's the famous kitchen mishap, the blue soup dinner. She tries to host like an adult, but a small mistake turns the soup bright blue. The next day's entry, paraphrase, reads, units 3, calories uncounted, mood mortified. As usual, consultations with her friends pivot the situation. They advise her to order food next time and save the night. She writes it down with humor. The stats plus a one-line reflection show how kindness reduces shame.
All of that connects to self-acceptance. The book doesn't say, stop trying. It says, try without cruelty. That's why a simple sentence like, I like you very much, just as you are, hits so hard. It resets the idea that love must be earned by perfect numbers, and it directly resonates with the personal self-doubts we all face at some point.
Friendship as a safety net is huge. After each stressor, the pattern is vent, truth, plan. One friend names the problem, one makes a joke to lower pressure, one proposes a tiny next step. The diary captures the before and after, with almost no lecturing.
Which brings us to charm versus respect. Charm is the big entrance, flirty messages, witty lines. Respect is follow-through, keeping a plan, listening, noticing details. In the diary, respect shows up as calm, mood lines and fewer spikes in units. You observe, not just believe.
The diary helps her cope with red and green flags all the time. Red flags include last-minute cancellations that form a pattern, hot-cold texting, and big promises with no action. Green flags include consistent presence, practical help, giving space when you're stressed, and remembering what matters to you.
Is the narrator reliable? We trust her feelings. They're direct and honest. Her conclusions can be shaky in the moment, but the diary revises itself. She'll write a snap judgment and adjust. That's realistic growth.
Before we conclude, let's briefly analyze the book versus the film. Some listeners have seen the film but haven't read the book, so it's worth asking how faithful the movie is to the source. I think the tone is very faithful. The film keeps the confessional vibe with voiceover and adds visual comedy to replace some diary text. I also like that the plot remains faithful to the central triangle and key beats. However, the film compresses time and trims side characters for obvious production reasons. A book can roam freely through imagination, whereas a film must create images, so it inevitably shapes your imagination. We also note that the friend group gets fewer layers in the film and the workplace satire is punchier. The interior voice in the book is stronger. On the page, repeated stats and mini resolutions build patterns over weeks. The film can't include every micro entry, so it uses expressions and physical comedy instead.
I totally agree. However, we can't leave before making a practical comparison using our stressors. For family pressure, the book shows the spike in numbers and the next day softening, while the film uses awkward smiles and a quick escape to friends. The voiceover covers the sting but with fewer steps. For the work wobble scene, the book lets you live inside the overthinking, then the self-correction. The film communicates it with a look, a stumble, and a cut to the aftermath. Clear but faster. For romantic mixed signals, the book charts the push-pull across several entries, stats up, then down, while the film gives you an instant spark, then a cut to silence. Effective but less granular.
If you've only watched the film, be sure to read the book as well. It adds the slow change in self-talk from harsh to fair, and shows how small habits mirror our moods. On the other hand, if you've only read the book, I recommend you watch the film too. It helps you put faces to the characters, the timing is faster, and a few iconic visual gags make the social awkwardness crystal clear.
A few guidelines for non-readers. When you hear a diary-style line like cigarettes, 5, units, 2, calories, 1,200, imagine it coming right after a stressor, like a family comment, a work undercut, or a mixed message, and then look for what follows. Usually a chat with friends, a tiny plan, and a gentler tone. That forms the rhythm of the novel.
Exactly. Charm is a spark, care is a pattern. The book lets you measure the pattern. The film shows the spark and enough pattern to feel true. Well, that brings us to the end of yet another hilarious discussion. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and suggest more books for our next episodes.